You're watching Good on Paper, a bookish channel. I'm Jenny.
And I'm Rachel.
Join us as we journey together into the land of fiction, where the men are brave, the quests are epic, and everything is better on paper. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
So, new week, new episode. This week, we're discussing a very contentious point among writers, and that is the craft of writing, whether it is a talent you are born with or whether it's something that you can learn. Some people think that you are born with it and you can learn, but you're never going to be as good. And some people think that just like with everything else, you get better with practice. So you're going to be seeing what we think about it. I already kind of know what I think, but the interesting thing about our discussions is I feel like we go down rabbit holes and maybe we bring up points that we have never thought about before.
Yeah.
So
I know, I'm curious. I'm like, hey, what do you think? I don't know if I want to tell you what I think.
I still really think that it is something that you can learn. That's not, I do recognize the fact that there are some people who do just have, that talent. But I really wonder, where did they get it? Because, so I've been writing since I was 6, right? So some people might say it was a talent. But the thing is, when I learned to read, I did nothing but read. And then I was homeschooled. So I spent many more hours reading and writing than maybe like another kid would have.
Yeah.
Because there's that whole 10,000 hours kind of thing makes you an expert.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, if somebody said, oh, you have a talent for writing, I think, well, that's not fair because I probably had more time spent reading and writing than a kid who was in school like all day, because those hours just add up. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think there's anything different about me. It's just how I happened to spend my childhood.
Yeah.
Honestly, so I just think it's something that you can learn. It just takes, a certain amount of hours. It takes the passion. It takes the drive to do it. You could say that writers have a different kind of brain, but I think that the desire for writing and that kind of brain go hand in hand.
Yeah.
To me, they're one and the same. So maybe not everybody has a desire to write. I would agree with that, but I wouldn't say that not everybody has the talent to write. But then again, if talent is based on desire, maybe we're just arguing over semantics here at this point.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's definitely like a hot topic. So
it is a very hot topic. I had never thought of it as like if you read a lot, then you already have like a I guess like one foot in that door of wanting to write because you're so familiar with stories. However, I would say that I did not start reading until middle school. I hated reading. I despised it so much. And so I'm sorry to all my teachers. And I was a public school kid, so I never read at all until I got to middle school. But I started writing when I was in elementary school. I didn't have the patience to continue anything. I would like write like a page and a half, and then I would, get antsy because I'm impatient and I would go do something else. But I always had the creative instinct that I wanted to make up stories in my head, and then I would try to write them down and they would be terrible. So I feel like it's like this really weird thing where I don't know if I would say anybody's like a natural born writer in the sense that you just have natural talent. But I would say that there is just a part of you or your brain that you naturally want to make up stories. I think that's a natural thing that happens. Like whether it's that you're a big daydreamer or whatever, I think that's a natural thing that's inside of you, and then you cultivate it into becoming a writer. I don't think anybody's just naturally good at it. I think it all is practice, and you just learn as you go. But I would say that you naturally have a writer's brain or you don't. I feel like you can get better at writing itself, but as far as like creating a story, I feel like you can spout things you've learned, or you can spout things you've read in other books or seen in shows. But I feel like a naturally creative person who naturally likes to create stories in their head can create a better story than someone who's just spouting something they've read before, basically.
Yeah, and maybe they just decided they wanted to write a book because they thought it would be cool.
Yeah.
You know, that's going to be different. And then there's the fact, that's the other thing. Okay, so the 10,000 hours thing is true to a point, but
Mm-hmm.
I've said this before, probably on Instagram, but time does not always equal progress. I mean, somebody can spend 50 hours working on something, and then somebody else can spend 10, and this person might be ready faster or better faster. So, you know, it's so weird, and it's immeasurable. You cannot predict things, and I think that's when we have to realize, you know, we're not God, because we cannot. We love science in this day and age, but we cannot quantify and predict everything. You never know. I mean, somebody could decide when they're 50, maybe they never read a book in their life, or they just don't read that often. You could decide, I want to be a writer, and they spend a couple years doing it, and then they're a bestseller. I mean, it's just, it's so random. It really is.
It is, yeah. And I would say that you can tell, not always, sometimes when you're reading a book, it's not clear whether or not the person really just shouldn't be a writer because they don't have the natural creativity, or it's just they're unpracticed and there's things they need to learn. Sometimes it could be either one. And then sometimes you read it and you're like, I feel like you regurgitated things you've read before, and none of this was really like just from your imagination. It's like there's a difference in those things, for sure.
Yeah.
It is a hard thing to actually, you know.
Yeah, because you can write good sentences in a clean draft, but getting like the spark, and I don't know if that's not everybody can do it, or just sometimes it's harder to learn that part.
Yeah.
Getting the spark. I mean, I've read stuff on Wattpad where, it was the worst, like, when we're talking about writing quality, one of the worst things I've ever read, but there was so much spark and life in that story.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and those two things sometimes seem to be separate, and I think they are separate. And sometimes people have the spark, but not like the technical, grammatical, any of that kind of stuff. And then some people have all that stuff that they can write beautiful prose, but it's kind of dead, you know. And not saying that people do this all the time. It could be just a certain project you're working on. I'm not necessarily saying some people have the spark, some people have the grammar, and that's all they'll ever be.
Yeah.
You know, it could be with a certain project or whatever is going on in your life. It could turn out that way. But I do see that in books a lot where they're beautifully written, but it just feels like there's nothing there. Or the story is so vibrant, but it's just not like executed well.
Yeah.
So, and like I said, I don't know. I think you can learn the spark, but maybe you can't. I don't know, you know, because I'm not everybody. I haven't read everything. So I'm just basing off of what I think I know of myself and what I think I know of other people, but I don't really know.
Yeah. I would say, gosh, now I'm like, I don't know who anybody is a good writer, who's not a good writer, because now I'm like, okay, those books that I've read and didn't like because they were poorly written, is it because that person maybe had like an idea, or they saw a Hallmark movie and then they thought maybe if you gave it this spin, it could be a new story. So they basically just regurgitated something and they're not a good writer? Or is it that they have a decent concept, but it's just they're not practiced enough, or they're not, they're not looking to learn to get better and they should?
Yeah.
Or is it that this book is really boring and they're a bad writer? Or is it that they focus too much on the way it sounded rather than the way the story went? Like, I don't know now. I'm like, I think that the goal should be for everybody is, for one thing, and this is something I heard somebody else say, if you are a published author, have somebody else do it, because doing it yourself is really brutal, but have somebody else look at your reviews to see what like the consensus complaints are, because if there's more than one person complaining about something, it's probably true. And you can be, a natural writer and like have the natural creativity to write and not be doing it well. Like because that's part of the
Yeah.
growing process. You just have to realize, okay, I think you have to be willing to think about a good writer. You have to be willing to realize where your shortcomings are and be willing to work on them rather than
Yeah.
just doing the same thing you've been doing that's not working.
Yeah. Well, yeah, to me, I mean, it really sounds like what this conversation is about. We all pretty much agree that everybody is a bad writer to start.
Yes.
Can everybody get better, or can only a few people get better? And of the people who do get better, is it because they have the ability to get better, or they make the choice to get better? I mean, these people who
Yeah.
don't get better, is that because they don't have the abilities, or is that because they choose not to get better? That's the real question. I don't know that you can
Yeah.
ever find the answer to that.
Yeah.
I mean, unless you could do a scientific study where you got, I don't know, 100 or however many
Yeah.
samples, and you could follow their journey and see what they do. But I don't know, because if the people knew they were in this study, they'd probably make different choices. So I don't know that you could ever quantify that. I really don't.
I agree. I know. I'm like, because now I'm thinking like, I don't know. Are there really bad writers out there, or is everyone just unpracticed and not willing to make changes to what they're doing? I will say, I have read a book. I won't say who it was because I don't want to make anybody feel bad, but I did read a book where the story was interesting. She had a decent prose, but it still felt a little bit lifeless to me. Like, and that she had said that the reason she started writing was because she read books all the time and somebody else told her she should write a book.
Yeah.
So I think what was missing for me was the passion to write. And I think that comes naturally. So I feel like that's probably where I would say you really just shouldn't be a writer is if you don't have the passion to write. Like if you're not just like writing doesn't feel like a choice to you, it's just like something you have to do. I feel like that's kind of a natural thing you should have to add to a story, but I feel like everything else can be improved.
Yeah. No, I agree, because I feel like I can't even think of who these people might have been, but I feel like I've run across authors who they were always readers. And just because you're a reader doesn't mean you're a writer necessarily. I would say that honestly, most readers probably do like to write, but not all of them enjoy writing. And of the ones who enjoy writing, how many of them enjoy it enough to get better at it? Because if you're gonna write, it's a craft and it is a skill that you have to learn. So just because you like just sitting down and writing doesn't mean you have the dedication to improve on it. Because that is a whole nother thing that is painful. I mean, when you're trying to do anything and you're challenging yourself, it's going to be hard. And it's not going to be fun all the time. So I do think there are some writers who are maybe readers who either really aren't writers at all. They're just readers, or they're readers who would be writers, but maybe there's just not, they have other things going on in their lives. Because that's the thing, writing is not the only thing you can do in your life. I mean, you can sew, you can hike, you can blow glass, you can do pottery, you can, I mean, there's so many things. You have to choose. And if everybody was a writer, we wouldn't have food to eat.
Yeah.
So just because everybody doesn't have the enjoyment of writing or the drive to really stick to it, no, that's not a bad thing. It's actually a very good thing because we need people who have other interests. And sometimes I wonder about myself. I think that I'll stop writing and I'll be sewing and I'll be like, it would be so great if I didn't have writing as like my hobby or my, except for I still think of it as a hobby, even though I make money from it. Like my hobby. Like, wow, like how relaxing. I could just watch TV and sew when I wanted to. And that would probably be all that I did. And then I could read. I mean, I could just read. Like my life without writing would be so different. And I think, maybe I'll just have kids and I'll be a mom and I'll just watch TV and I'll read and then maybe I'll do little crafty things. And that's what I'll do. And so I do not blame anybody for not wanting to put in the effort because sometimes it crosses my mind. I thought, what if you just don't do this anymore? And it sounds really nice. It really does. It sounds great not to do it anymore. But I think I start getting restless when I don't do it. And maybe that is the mark of the true writer. I don't know. Like the person that God has placed that desire in your heart and made you for that. Because I think there's a difference between wanting to do something and having it be your calling and what you're made to do.
Yeah.
And I definitely feel like I'm made to do that because I don't feel like myself unless I'm writing. I feel antsy. I feel like my personal life gets all messed up when I'm not writing. Like, I don't know if it gets out of perspective or I just don't make the same kind of choices that I would make if I was writing. But I feel like writing makes me a better person. And that to me tells me that that is what God is telling me I need to do. I don't have a choice. You know, that's what, I mean, I do have a choice, but I wouldn't be following his commands at that point. So I don't have a choice, you know.
No, I think that brings up a really good point though, because I would say everybody has like a handful of talents that you range from like you're just moderately good at to you're really good at. And like I can draw decently, but it's not excuse me. It's not my passion. It's not what I want to do every day. It's not the thing I want to make a living off of. It's something that I do every once in a blue moon when I'm in the mood, but I don't want to do it all the time. I can sing to a degree where I don't hurt anybody's ears, but do I want to go out and get a record deal? No. It's not my passion. It's not what I want to do all the time. Writing is the only talent that I have that I feel like I need to do this. I don't like taking breaks from doing this. It's the one job I've ever had where I'm like, yes, this is what I'm supposed to do. This is my calling in life. And so I guess it kind of depends on the writer you are. Like some people are going to write as a hobby that they just want to write every once in a while. They don't want to do anything with it. It's just fun. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. You're still a natural writer. It's just, I think the question more is it your calling? Is more what you have to ask yourself. Is this what you really, really want to do all the time? Or is it just something that you want to do when you feel like it? Either way, it's fine. It's just different lives, you know?
Yeah. No, I agree. Like what you said with singing. I mean, I went to school to become a musician. And I know in a sense, I have what it takes, you know, to go on, have a career and sing opera for my career. I know I could have done it, but I didn't want to put in the work and the sacrifice that it takes to do it. Like I have a good enough voice. I'm a good enough actress. I look right enough to do it.
Yeah.
I have like the detail oriented, like we had to go through like a list of all the things, all the qualities you needed to make it in that career. I had pretty much most of them.
Yeah.
But, and it was almost so hard to walk away from that, knowing that the only thing holding you back is the passion. That is really, really hard, especially with something, because I think I would have been somewhat enough happy with a career like that.
Yeah.
But just not enough, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people have these things that they could have done, but you know, you need 100%. You can't do 95%.
Yeah.
99%. You have to have everything if you're going to make it, especially in something like, I mean, music, I would only say, is harder than writing because you writing, at least you can have, I mean, you could have a day job with music, but I mean, you can sit at home and you can write and you just need a laptop. Yeah. You need a library computer for that matter. I mean, whereas a career in opera, I mean, you need funding. I mean, that's when, you know, the patrons of the old days when artists used to be supported by patrons. In a lot of ways, the classical music world is it's still very like that. So it's just, and then it's hard to settle down because you're always moving and this and that. So definitely not for me, but sometimes I still think about it and I miss it. But whenever I sing now, like if I sing classical music, not if I'm just singing for myself, like folk songs or whatever, I almost can't enjoy it because I can hear what I could have been, but what I don't have the time and desire to do.
Yeah.
And I'm just not happy. I'm like, this sounds great, but I'm not singing it to my full potential, and I have no desire to do that, or I don't have enough desire. And that's the thing in life, you have to make choices, and I chose writing.
Yeah.
And, you know, if people don't choose writing, then they don't choose writing. That's
Yeah.
That's life. We can't all do
I think
one thing.
I think that's such a powerful example though, because you can be really, really good at something and have everything work out that this could be the thing for you. And like the only thing that's missing is that you just don't quite feel like this is it for you. And that's
Yeah.
really hard to walk away because you put in so much work and so much time and so much energy. And then you also have a picture of your future that now has to completely shift with your, change in path. Like it's a huge thing. And
I feel like
yeah.
it's like a huge movie trope.
Mm.
Like, especially for kids' movies, the football star, the gymnast, the ballet dancer, like for Olympics or something like that. Those people who are so good at what they're doing, and then they walk away. It's that one line. It's like, that's not my dream, Dad. It's yours. Like every single Disney movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, where these kids, and a lot of times it's a kid movie because you can see where the parents kind of pushed it, but it can happen to adults too, where they get to like the peak of their career and they give it up because they realize this isn't working for me, and you have to have 100%. You can't have 95%. It's just not going to work.
You have to love that career to a degree that you're willing to do all the things. That I guess you have to get to a point with that where all the things you have to do or all the things you have to give up are really worth it to you. Like it doesn't feel like it's taking sacrifice because you love what you're doing that much. And I feel that way about writing, but I don't feel that way about like teaching. Like I didn't feel that way about teaching. To me, I was like, yeah, I like kids. I'm creative. So, I felt like I checked the boxes to be a teacher, but I did not have the passion to actually teach. I was passionate for kids, but not to actually teach. I was like, I hate this. Like everything in college made it sound like it would fit for me, and it just did not. And with writing, there's a lot of things I do that I don't want to do, or that, sacrifices you make, but it's not that I don't mind making them because they're never fun, but I don't despise doing those things and making those sacrifices because I love this enough that it's worth it to me. And if you don't feel that way, then it's not the passion you should pursue full time.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And sometimes liking something partly because, and especially as creative people, because teaching is a very creative thing, and a lot of creative people like it because you get to be creative in how you teach kids. Because I teach music lessons. And part of the thing, other than music, which I like music, but one of my favorite parts of teaching music lessons is just coming up with different creative ways for them to learn a concept.
Yeah.
But does that mean I should teach music full time? Probably not, because there's another part of me that just feels like all that pressure that surrounds me when I'm doing music. And I never learned how to deal with that. Probably could have, but that's not the way my life went. If somebody's listening, I just feel like I'm going to make a mistake. And then because I get in my head like that, I do make a mistake. And I just, and then all the negativity starts coming up. And I just, now granted, if I started teaching music full time, that would probably eventually go away. But, there's only so much time in the day. If I was teaching full time, I wouldn't have as much time to write. So
I was going to say, if we had all the time in the world to do everything, we could do all the hobbies and all of the passions. I would say, this sounds weird, but if you guys watched that Marie Kondo show, even if you didn't, we all know the phrase, I think. I feel like you should take all of your talents and like do them one at a time and be like, does this spark joy? No? Okay, I shouldn't do that one all the time. Like pursue the one that sparks the most joy of all of your talents and all of your passions, and then the rest of them are just hobbies.
Yeah, exactly. And the ones that stick with you, the ones you always come back to, because when I was in music school, they said this. They said, it's easy to like music when you're in school and you're surrounded by people. When you're in this world, you think you love it, but take yourself out of that world. Do you still do it? I can't remember the last time I played the piano. I just don't do it. I don't sing unless I'm randomly singing. And generally, I'm not even like really singing. I'm just singing a commercial that was in my head. You know what I mean? I just won't do music anymore because I'm not in music school. I'm not surrounded by musicians. I have no friends who are musicians. So that wasn't in me. It's got to be in you that the external world doesn't feed it. Like
Yeah.
if I was somewhere, actually, other than Instagram, I don't have any writer friends. I've never had real life writer friends, really,
Same.
you know? But I just do it because it's in me. And I think that's a big difference. Like if your hobby is like external, then it's probably a hobby. But if
Yeah.
it's like something that you always do, no matter the circumstances or where you are or how you're feeling in life, not to say that sometimes we don't take breaks, because sometimes when you're really overwhelmed or depressed or even really happy in your life, sometimes you'll
Yeah.
stop writing. But for the most part, you come back to it no matter what. And
Yeah.
that's another sign, I think, that you're really meant to be a writer or whatever it is you do. It could be something else.
Yeah. Yeah.
You just come back to it.
I agree. Yeah. It should be like the pillar of your life, basically.
Mm-hmm.
That's just what you love. Yeah.
Yeah.
This conversation really took a turn.
I know.
Certainly
Well,
than what I
I didn't put all these things together until we started talking about it,
Hey,
you know? But
yeah. I
Yeah,
wasn't even
so-
sure when I would have to think about it, and then we kept going, and I was like, oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Wow.
So I guess we still aren't sure whether, writing something can be learned or something that you have, but we definitely are sure that there are some things that you can't stop doing versus some things you just like doing that you could stop doing. So maybe that is because those people who are, like we said, like called to be writers, they're probably the only like real writers. But I guess what I would say is I don't think the distinctions matter so much. Even if you're not a real writer, even if you listen to this and you're like, this is not me, like I could stop writing and never do it again in my life, but you still like to write books sometimes, whenever. I don't think that only real writers should write books, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you write a book, you write a book, and sometimes it doesn't even. I don't think there's necessarily a correlation between the quality of your writing and whether you're called to be a writer. Generally, I feel like if you're called to be a writer, you end up becoming a better writer because you do it more often versus somebody who wrote a book once and it was more like a hobby for them.
Yeah.
Just because you probably have more time. But there are people who wrote one book and it was just kind of a passing phase in their lives and it was good. I mean, there's nothing to say that you can't write a good book if it's not necessarily like your be all end all calling, because you absolutely can write a good book or two or three, even if you don't feel like that's your main purpose in life. Maybe you feel your main purpose in life is teaching or being a mother or being an accountant or being an artist. That doesn't necessarily mean that you can't write a good book. I don't think there's like a correlation.
No, I would say that kind of like with you and music, if it's not your like end all passion and your calling, I would almost guarantee you that at some point you're going to burn out on it and you're not going to want to do it anymore anyway, because you're not, it's going to be like, this takes more. It's kind of like an extrovert gets fueled by being around people and an introvert gets fueled being alone.
Yeah.
And if you're not fueled by what you're doing, it will exhaust you at some point. And that's just, like you can do whatever you want to do, but I would bet you money that if it's what you are really, really called to do and you really, really love it, it'll just fuel you and you keep doing it. And if it's not, it'll exhaust you, and at some point you'll stop because you're like, I don't want to. This is too much.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's really more about whether you're going to burn out or not, than are you going to write a good book? Whether it's going to be good or not doesn't matter. It's will this burn me out or will I keep doing this till the end of my days? That's really the only difference here, and that's not something anybody should feel bad about.
No. Either way you are, doesn't matter. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's room enough in the world and enough readers in the world for all of us. So.
Yeah. And I feel like there's a lot more readers than writers, which is a good thing.
Mm-hmm. Plus, readers read so stinking fast that it doesn't really matter. You will never be able to write enough books for them to devour all of them. Like to devour them where we're run out,
No, really. I mean, because writing a book takes so long versus reading it, especially. I mean, you're a really fast reader. I think you're faster than I am, and I'm a really fast reader. And a lot of readers are that fast. I mean, I was reading some Substack article and they said nobody reads anymore. And that could be true. Maybe fewer people read than before, but the people who read, they read. So don't ever feel like, there's not enough readers to go around for the writers, because there definitely are. I think this person wanted to start publishing on Substack and use that as an excuse of this is the new model of publishing, which I don't agree with. I still think people buy books. Maybe they're reading more on their Kindle. They're still books.
Yeah.
I think serial stories could become bigger, for sure. I mean, they were like Charles Dickens did, and it is kind of nice to have it like the TV show and you get to talk about it with people.
Yeah.
But I don't think, serial online publishing is gonna totally replace it. I mean, things might become more online, but I definitely think there's gonna be a market for like a beginning to end book.
Yes, very much.
Yeah, I just don't see that going away. I could be wrong, but I don't think that's
those readers. No, and I don't. What are those readers are going to read in between episodes? They're going to read a regular book.
Exactly. Because some people just read faster, and those people will always read those books,
Yeah.
So, yeah. But, you got to do what you got to do to make money on Substack. So, if that's your spin on it, then.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, because if you look at now we're getting really off topic, but a side note, if you look at reviews of Kindlevella, people do not like serial stories. The reader. Other people who are maybe not readers, it might entice them into it, but I don't know that readers who are used to reading that way are really into it. Like you might get a new audience of readers, but I think it's going to take a few generations to change people's minds about reading.
Used to one way. Yeah.
Because I really consider not doing Kindlevella just because readers seem to hate it so much. I honestly, I kind of agree with them, but that's another story. I kind of went in with it thinking, well, I'm going to try this and see if what my initial thought is correct, kind of, about it. Because I was like, I don't know, this seems like too much money for what it is. And like, I just don't, at least I don't agree with Amazon, the way that they do it. I guess I should say. Maybe it's not necessarily serial stories, but the way that Amazon is doing it, I'm not sure about this. But we should do an episode later about Kindlevella debrief.
Yes, we should, because now that you know so much about it, you can give like a whole TED talk about it.
Yeah. But
for all of us who don't understand the ins and outs yet.
Yeah. But anyway, we got off topic as we do, but
us never. What are you talking about?
Yeah. And I don't even think we really answered our question, but we brought up some interesting points. So
I don't know that it can be answered, so I feel like we did the best we could.
Yeah, I agree. Some things are not meant to be answered. And I think that's why we write too.
Yeah. I agree.
Because sometimes life, you can't answer it, so you just have to express it in some way.
Yeah.
Like, with books, and some people do it with art and music, but I think that is kind of the main purpose of art, is just sometimes life really doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And I think everybody feels that way, but maybe not everybody turns to writing, as a way to process it.
I'd agree with that. Yeah. Art is how we interpret life.
Yeah. Well, let us know what you guys think on the topic. I would be really curious if anybody does have a strong one or the other, because I feel like I'm kind of wishy-washy. I'm not quite sure. But, if you have a strong viewpoint on whether writing is something can be learned, whether it's something you're born with, if you believe strongly in one of those two things, definitely let us know. Comment on the YouTube page. You can message us on Instagram. And anything you message us, we would love to talk about with you, like more fully, like whether we record an episode with you, or something. So always feel free to message us, especially if you have ideas of stuff that we could talk about as well. We would love that.
Yes, we would, please. We always need to add more to the list of ideas. So thank you guys for tuning in.
Yeah, we will see you next week.
Yes, we will. Bye, guys.
Hey guys, thanks so much for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed it, and tune in next week for another episode. And if you enjoyed it, please consider leaving a review so that other people can find us, and we will see you in the future. Bye.